Hi, this is Frederick from Detroit, Berlin, a channel about modular synthesizers, music gear in general and music production. The Mixwitch from Klavis. Sometimes you come across a module that is like a Swiss Army knife. It does multiple things like a make noise mouth. It's kind of complicated. The Mixwitch, I think it's not complicated and it does a lot. It is a mixer, it is a switcher, hence the name Mixwitch, but it can do so much more because you have so many options. On the mixer part and on the switcher part, it is also a sequencer that has, it sends out control voltages if you have nothing plugged into it. Let me get my manual from the Mixwitch from Klavis, Belgian manufacturer of eurorack modules, and let me really quickly go over all the things the Mixwitch can do. It's so enormous that I need the manual to go over it. So here we go. 1. It can be a control signal mixer. In linear mode you can mix control voltages. Audio mixer is the second one. You can use it as a regular mixer, a 2-2 mixer or a 4 mixer. 3. 4-step sequencer / randomizer. 4. Simple sub-octave generator. 5. Complex sub-octave generator. 6. Simple granular synthesis. 7. Multiple segment wave shaper. 8. Phase controlled wave stitcher. 9. Voltage controlled transposer. 10. Drum randomizer. 11. Digital inverter / signal amplifier. 12. Voltage window comparator. 13. Drum selection in sequencing applications. 13. Random clocking - chance generator. 15. 2-input logic AND / NAND gate. 16. 2-input logic XOR gate, digital ring modulator. 17. Saw to pulse width modulation with manual or CV control. And 18. Hard clipping. That's a lot, and I must say, if you read the list like that, you would think it's an incredibly unintuitive module, but it's the opposite. I think it's designed brilliantly, and one thing I adore about this module, when you power down the system, it will actually remember the last setting it was at. So for live performances it's amazing, because I truly despise modules that when you shut down the system they kind of reset, and every time you come at a gig and you're setting up your modular, you need to remember, oh, I should put that module in this mode and such on and so on. This, it just remembers it. That's totally amazing in my opinion. By the way, all the Klavis modules, from what I know, have this function. There's nothing worse than, like I mentioned, coming at a gig and needing to set up all the modules the way they should be. These modules, they just remember the last setting on shutdown. So when you start up your modular, it's right to go. So let's go over all the knobs and the buttons and the inputs and the outputs. So you got the polarity, positive or negative. This is a button, it switches the polarity, and you got one for the A1 knob, for the A2, the B1 and the B2. So these work in a similar way. Then you got the logarithmic switch to put it in linear or logarithmic mode. You've got one for the top row and one for the bottom row of knobs. Then you got the off, so you can mute a section. You got 2 off switches. Then we come to the knobs. The knobs, they go to 50%, and from 50% on, if you're mixing signals, then it will start to distort. So you can overdrive the signal by going past 50%. You can pretty heavily overdrive, and I think it's a really nice tone. So that's great. You can do it with all 4 of them. They work, of course, in a similar manner. Then we take a look at the inputs. You got the in A1, in A2, B1 and B2. There is a control voltage normalized to these inputs, so if nothing is plugged in, these work as voltage generators. So therefore you can use it as a sequencer because it's a mixer, but it also switches between the different inputs. More on that later. Then you got the outputs. You got the A output and the B output. The A output is also normalized to the B output. So if you plug nothing into output A, you get all the signals out of output B. And then we go to the lower section. Got a CV/clock input. It accepts clock signals, it accepts CV signals. And with the switcher, you can switch between different modes. You got the B LED, which is the B mode, and then you got the CV and the clock. So those modes are CV controlled modes. It is kind of a voltage controlled switch, so you actually direct which input you are using by sending it a control voltage, and in clock mode it rotates between all the different inputs, and you can of course randomize it by going to another mode. You can use it as two-step sequencers or one 4-step sequencer, so it has plenty of options. I think this is a brilliant module, and let's go over a new patch. Let's use it as a switcher and as a sub-octave generator. Let's do all crazy stuff with this module because I think this is truly a gem. I don't know if I can call it underrated. I think it's more like undiscovered. It's a well-designed tool, and let's just go over some more settings and just have fun with the Klavis Mixwitch. Here I got the Mixwitch set up as just a plain regular mixer. Got all the inputs. In the input 1 I put the standard VCO, just a sine wave. It's not a perfect sine, but it's pretty close. Just put it in the top position. Let's hear it. It's the sine. Let's turn it down, turn it up, and here we're at close to 50% of volume. Actually it's 100%, and then it overdrives. Just start hearing the clipping. It's pretty nice. So pretty warm sound, so I really like it. It's not distortion that is ugly, it's beautiful warmth that is generated, so I really like it. It's more like an overdrive, I would say. It's overdriving the signal, and it sounds pretty interesting. Let's go over another waveform maybe. Let's try this one, the triangular wave. Almost here, the wave shaping that's yeah, I would say the pulse, but it won't have any effect. Not much, it's really subtle. And then the saw. It's pretty. It's just a mixer, and the really nice thing what you can do with this mixer, you can feed it a couple of signals. It's going at audio rate between those waveforms, and it's creating something really weird. What I'm doing here, it would not be possible if it wouldn't go into audio rate. Now we're combining a little bit of the modulation between those two waveforms and some sub-octave generation, because those two lower ones, I can put them off like this. And I can make a sub-octave out of it. So in mixer mode it's extremely useful. It's a nice quality mixer. I would suggest you have a couple of these in your system, because other than a mixer it also does other things really well. So let's maybe take the pulse out and put the pulse out into the clock input. Let's put one there. Let's see, let's just cycle through all of them. Let's take output B. Let's turn these two up, these two down, and let's feed it a pulse. Switch the mode to clock. And then we go from sub-octave to an octave lower. When you feed it a pulse and you put the first and the third all the way up and the second and the fourth all the way down, or vice versa, then you create a sub-octave. And you put the first two up and the second two down. You create even an octave lower. Maybe make it sound a little more brittle or full, like you would do with pulse width modulation. With the first and the third knob all the way up and the other two all the way down, you create a sub-octave, which is one octave lower than the pitch it was. Then, when you put this one up and the third down, actually create an octave lower, so it's 2 octaves lower. It's really buzzy, really low. You can also do this, create kind of a special, maybe do it like this, and you get like a step. a step sub-octave kind of, yeah, it's weird sounding, but it's really cool sounding. With this mix switch, there are multiple ways to create sub-octaves. You got them all at 50%. First one and third one in the positive. Second one, fourth one in the negative. Take the out of B and you clock it with a pulse. If you put them like a little bit like this, you can shape the way it sounds. This is 1 octave. If you put the first and the second one in the positive, the second two in the negative, then you create an octave even lower. You can shape it. By doing that, you put them all in the positive. You put the first one, let's see, all the way down, then a little bit more, and then all the way up. Can make kind of a stepped unipolar waveform. You could try to make it bipolar like this. And it sounds, of course, louder. So there's multiple ways to make divisions out of your waveform that triggers the clock. Let's now feed it a few waveforms. Pulse to the clock input, then go to the saw wave. Then let's take the triangular wave, put it in input 2. Then let's take the sine, and also let's just take a copy of the pulse and send it to N, the clock, and to input 4. One part of the 4-part waveform is the saw waveform. Then let's introduce, I think this is a triangular, it's the triangular, yes. And introduce the pulse. And it cycles through those waveforms. This is pretty much one way of doing it. You also got the CV mode, which is more of a wave shaping kind of granular synthesis kind of way of using the mix switch. As you can see on the oscilloscope, you really shape the way it sounds. It sounds kind of, almost digital, but of course it's an analog oscillator. Which is really interesting. Let's go back, try pulse width modulation. And then you're kind of scanning through that. Let's find an LFO. This one, and then and you create a really nice sound. Especially nice on bass. Really cool. Different mode. Really different sound, and I think this is a mixer, switcher, and the wave shaping capabilities, how to make custom waveforms by using different modes, it's totally mind-blowing. The logic behind it all, it's really interesting, and I would really advise you to take a look at the manual, try everything out, see what does what and how it reacts. But for me personally, I really like to just explore and just see how it can sound with just trial and error, pushing a button, then seeing which mode it's in, and then trying to figure out why it is doing that, how it is working. These different modes are very simple concepts. If you want to know more about how to use switchers and mixers and inverting mixers and such, please take a look at my How to Turbocharge a VCO video. Please take a look at that. I will link it in the description down below. In that episode, I describe a few ways in which you can use this mix switch. When I made that video, I didn't have the mix switch and I needed multiple different kind of modules, like the sequential switch, the inverting mixer, a bunch of modules. With the mix switch, I can do it all just in one simple module that is also very affordable. So I would say this is an unbelievable package. It kind of, I would not compare it to the Make Noise mods in a way that it does exactly the same. I would more say like it's complementary and it does different things. It also does a little bit of logic, but it's more like a mixer and a switcher and all the things you can make out of it when you combine those two and entwine them. And I think these really great sounds are the result of the way the module works. Really sounds cool. I totally adore this. It can improve upon your VCO. This is a no-brainer, this module. I am really stoked about this mix switch, and I hope that in the future Klavis, I really hope they will make in the future like an 8-step sequencer, maybe a little bit more on the sequencer side, but also have the mixing function and maybe a little bit more like triggers and stuff. I don't know. I would say let them decide how they will maybe create something like that, or a dual 8-step sequencer. Just, I think if this is a little bit bigger and it has more of the goodiness that's in that module, if they add more steps, then it would be mind-blowing. This is already mind-blowing. It's a 4-step sequencer. You can do so many really nice things. Let's go over the next thing that you can do with it. Let's just use it as an inverting mixer. So here we got the sawtooth, like you can see on the oscilloscope. Sounds like a sawtooth. Then let's bring in the pulse, which is still modulated. Let's invert the pulse so that the signal becomes a little bit stranger. Let's play around. And you create a really nice sound, a different one than when you wouldn't have such a mixer that can invert signals. Really nice way of using it. Let's go back and do something else. I fed it 4 waveforms from my Moog matriarch. What I'm going to do, I can use this fader. You got the first waveform, second one, third one, fourth one. So this is a nice way of just randomizing which oscillator, which sound to take. You can put them like that. So it can be kind of a voltage controlled switch. With this patch I have 4 inputs from the oscillators of the Moog matriarch. I put them to other waveforms and it is switching because I fed it some sample and hold, and this is going into the control voltage input so that it will actually go to the destination it is sent to by the control voltage. To get this kind of rhythmical, I wouldn't call it wave shaping because it's actually selecting these different oscillators. And with the tweakers from Klavis you can fine-tune the width. This control voltage is actually having influence on the mix switch. You can offset it, put it into the negative. So really nice way of using that voltage addressed switching. In this patch I have my Nord drum having a drum sequence, and this is going to the wasp filter. The wasp filter is going with the band pass out in the A2 input and the low pass, high pass output going into the A1 input. The mix is almost in the middle. Frequency is pretty much down because the mix, it lets through those highs, and the band pass then it will give a boost to those lows. Then this is the mixer for the incoming signals from the filter, and then it actually goes back into this mixer, and with this I'm doing some overdrive. I'm also in a moment using this to get something special. Just wait and see. So let's start that drum beat. So I'm enhancing that low end. Overdriving the signal. Now I'm using the VCO. I'm going to use the VCO to kind of bit crush it, Going to cycle through those modes. This mode. I'm using a clock to the pitch of the VCO to create this weird sound. So, pretty weird sounds. Really cool sounding. Okay. So, very interesting way to use the mix switch. Beats, they go really nicely into the mix switch with that overdrive. It really adds to the flavor of, yeah, you can shape the sound. It's, I think, really interesting module. It's extremely simple. You can do some logic. Maybe I won't go into that for now, but you can do it. It has actually to do with the control voltage input, and if it receives kind of a signal and then it switches channel 1, channel 2, and that way you can do some XOR and NAND logic. It's nice addition to have it in the module. It's probably not the first thing I will use it for, but as a sequencer I would say it is amazing. As a voltage addressed switch it is extremely nice. As an inverting mixer, as a normal mixer, there's so many possibilities. I really adore this module, and I will probably use it a lot in my system. So these modules, they look a little bit different. They are different in a good way, and yeah, I would say have a few of these in your system. Myself, I'm a big fan of having a couple of the same modules in your system, and this is a module that you can certainly have a few of them in your system because it does multiple things. It does it in a rather simple way, but brilliantly designed. And if you have a few in your system, you already know one module, then you know them all, and that really eases your workflow. If you have 8 different oscillators, they all work differently, they all have their sweet spots. That is nice in a way, but it's not productive. If you want to clear your mind and just work at some sounds and use it as a tool, it is just so nice to have a few of the same modules, that you know how they work, where the sweet spots are, that you don't have to search for everything. It improves productivity by a lot. With modules like these, simple, intuitive, and function-wise really broad, I cannot other than suggest this module. I would really recommend it. I'm having tons of fun with it. You can never have enough switches, sequencers and mixers, so this is a module that is worth gold, and it's really affordable, so I would say buy one now. I really think you won't regret. This concludes this episode. If you want to support me, please look at my Patreon page. A lot of the patching I do, I will put on there. And yeah, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please check Klavis out. They're really nice company from Belgium, and they make brilliant modules. What else can I say? Thank you for watching and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.